Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is Mike with Fraser on Sports. Thank you for joining me today. I was doing some film review of the Rams to see what the Steelers can expect this weekend. It is week 7 of the 2023 season. The Steelers are coming off of a bye week. They're heading into their 6th game of the season. They're going to be taking on the Rams in Los Angeles. So I was doing a little bit of film review, and something stood out to me that's not really so much of a film review topic, but more of just a teaching topic of how you can use your overall scheme and little nuances, little teeny tiny things to help scheme receivers open. If you followed me on Twitter for a while, if you watched my last video, you know that I've been fairly critical of Matt Canada and his play designs. There's something missing from his play designs. Obviously, the chance of fire Canada are erupting everywhere right now. It's not just me. A lot of people are very unhappy with the output. But it really does come down to in at the professional level of football, it comes down to the little things, the nuances, the subtleties that really make the difference between winning and losing. And whether it's entirely a play design thing, entirely an execution thing, or somewhere in the middle, which is very likely the situation, there's just something missing from the Steelers' offense right now. And so looking around the league and seeing how other teams are doing things is a great opportunity to find ways that things can improve. And I found this one play. It's not a spectacular play. There's nothing really big that happens. Situationally, it's largely inconsequential. The situation in the game is there's about 20 seconds left at the snap, in the 20 seconds left in the first half, and the Rams are in field goal range already from where they are at this point. We're looking at a 43, 44-yard field goal, certainly makeable, especially in a dome, for pretty much any NFL kicker. But obviously you can miss from that distance too. There's the percentages go down the further back you go. So they've got 20 seconds left. They've got some time. They'd like to go for the end zone here. And this play design allows them some vertical options, but also some underneath options. And they end up taking advantage of the underneath options because, like they should, the Arizona Cardinals are trying to take away the end zone, knowing that 3 points out of this drive is likely at this point. So they're just trying to keep them out of the end zone. So let's go ahead and watch this play through once really quickly and see what all is happening here. And then we'll come back and we'll talk more about it. So Stafford drops back to pass, finds Higbee for a 9-yard gain. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Like I said, nothing really spectacular about this. It's the little things that make this play happen. So First of all, let's go ahead and take a look at who's on the field, who we're dealing with. We've got Puka Nacua up here at the Z in the slot. We've got Tutu Atwell. Here's Tyler Higbee. Kyron Williams in the backfield. Cooper Kupp down here at the X. On the defensive side, we've got here, this is, by the way, a 1-5-5 nickel defense. Probably the least common of the 3 primary nickel alignments. You've got the 4-2-5 or 2-4-5, depending on your own personal nomenclature, depending on how you're used to it, or depending on how you define what those numberings mean. And then there's the 3-3-5, of course, which is 3 linemen, 3 linebackers, and 5 defensive backs. In this particular case, they're lined up in a 4-2-5 kind of alignment, but it's a 1-5-5 nickel personnel. You have Dante Still here in the on the defensive line. He is the only defensive lineman on the field at this point. He will also be the only person in a 3-point stance. Up here you have Dennis Gardeck. Over here is Zaven Collins and Cam Thomas over here on the outside. These are all 3 outside linebackers. Puts a lot of speed and a lot of pass rushing ability on the field at one time. Back here you have Zaven Collins, and over here you have Josh Woods. These are really the key players in this play, and these are the people to keep your eyes on. So what's going to ultimately happen here is Nacua is going to come up here, and he's going to do a deep dig at about the 10. Atwell is going to go a couple of yards deeper, and down here Kupp is going to come up here and run a curl. Williams is just going to kind of leak out here into the flat, and Higbee is going to initially show block, and then he's going to pop up here and run a short to mid curl about 8 yards downfield. So what I want you to watch as we go through this again, we're going to do this in slow motion here in a second. I want you to watch Kaiser White's eyes. We're going to slow this down to 1/3 speed. You can see he's got a dark visor on, so it makes it really easy to see where his head is pointing. Right now, his head is pointing straight back. Basically, he's locked on to Higbee at this point. So we're going to go ahead and play this. And it's going to be a little bit jumpy. I apologize. Got to find a better player here. So right here, he sees that Higbee has engaged. His eyes have now turned, and he is focused heavily on these two receivers out here. He knows that he's got two guys covering on the outside here, plus the deep safety. One thing that I didn't discuss that I probably should go ahead and do before we get any deeper into this breakdown. This defense is a quarters defense. So this cornerback's going to drop back here. This safety's going to drop. This safety's going to drop. This corner's going to drop. They're each going to cover a quarter of the deep field. And then you have these two linebackers and the nickel back down here underneath. Excuse me. And what they're going to do is they're going to cover basically three different zones here on the underneath level. And this is typical for a quarters defense. Now, what's happening here, though, that kind of makes this a little bit more difficult is that you have three receivers on one side and one receiver over here on the other side. So what's going to happen here with Kaiser White is he's going to have to shift his zone a little bit, because they're going to have to account for the fact that there are extra receivers on the offensive left as opposed to, or as compared to the offensive right. So you're going to see what happens here with that. So and one thing I also didn't mention is that Atwell's route, when I originally drew that, I drew that so that it looked like it was coming straight down and then out, but that's not actually what's happening. He's actually going to drift inside a little bit here, and he's going to scrape along the edge of Kaiser White's zone. And White, he's going to basically draw White's attention because Arizona is trying to do everything they can to keep the Rams out of the end zone at this point. So anything deep is going to be his primary responsibility. He's willing to give up the underneath stuff here. So he sees him going here. And right here, he looks back at Higbee, and he sees that Higbee is coming free. He does know that he has help on the deep end here, because this is not going to be an in-breaking route. At least it doesn't look like it's going to be an in-breaking route into his zone at this point. So he's going to focus back in on Higbee, and he goes ahead and does that. He makes his adjustment. He sees Stafford throw the ball, but not able to get there in time. Now, this play is a win-win. It's a win for the Rams because the Rams get closer for their field goal. Their field goal is essentially an extra point at this point. It's only 2 yards deeper than a standard extra point, which is snapped normally from the 15-yard line. It's going to be snapped from the 17 when all is said and done here. So they keep them out of the end zone, but the Rams get closer. They have that chip shot, not a cheap shot. They have that chip shot field goal that they're going to go ahead and make. So like I said, it is a win-win, but this is just a really nice way of getting an underneath receiver open against a defense that's designed to really stop anything beyond about 5 yards. What we're going to also look at here is the other thing that opens up that middle is, and let me go ahead and make sure this is back to one full speed here. Over here on this side, you have Josh Woods over here, and he is going to be pulled out of the middle. He's going to see Williams here running out into the flat. There's nobody covering the flat at this point in this particular scheme, so he's going to have to kind of make that decision to go ahead and do that. And you'll see him come over here and do that, and it opens up so much space right here. And what we ultimately get is this beautiful passing lane right here, beautiful sight line for Matt Stafford. And Higbee's just going to see these two guys in zone, and he's just going to come in here and just settle right in the middle of this zone, and does a great job of finding that soft spot and allowing them to get the completion. It's actually probably a good thing for Stafford and the Rams that Stafford did not try to go for one of the deeper routes, because there's a pretty good chance that even if he completes the pass, it's not going to make it to the end zone. And when they finally get up and spike the ball, I believe there's only about 4 seconds left. There's a possibility that having to run deeper down the field to do that spike might not have allowed them any time on the clock to be able to kick the field goal. So by making that decision to go to the check down receiver who was schemed open because he initially showed block, and that allowed or that gave Kaiser White the comfort in dropping back and covering the deeper routes for a second, and basically left Higbee wide open underneath. So I think overall this was just a really good design. Like I said, it is a win-win for both teams. Nothing really dramatic out of this, but just showing how you can use the little nuances in the play design, the show block, and then run up and do the curl to create space in the offense. And I think that this is just a really good example of that. So I hope you enjoyed this video breakdown. I hope to release multiple videos each week. So if you enjoyed this, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a like. And if you want to see more football film breakdowns, you can always subscribe to the Fraser on Sports channel. And of course, be sure to turn on notifications so you know when new videos drop. Have a great day.